Thank you for staying with us. We're watching KBC Channel 1. This is Good Morning Kenya. The segment is People and Politics. My name is Mike Migwe. Now we look at politics and everything in between. But before we get into that, let's look at what is making headlines in our local dailies. I will start with the Daily Nation. Agony for youth after Ruto visit. 50 suspects arrested in a police crackdown in Isiolo town on Saturday, hours after President Ruto's meeting was marred by heckling, were yesterday arraigned amid protests by relatives and human rights activists who accused the government of intimidation and harassment. That story is told on page 4 of the Daily Nation. Voting blocks to watch in 2027. An analysis of population projections over the next 20 years show a surge in northeastern, even as President William Ruto abolished strict vetting to ease issuance of national identification cards to the region's residents. The estimates suggest a population growth slump in the populous Mount Kenya and a surge in traditionally sparsely populated areas. That story is told on page 10 of the Daily Nation. 1 year later, Kiptum's assets frozen over family disputes. Read that story on page 34 of the Daily Nation. Cash bouquets on the rise as women fall out of love with flowers. That is a story you'll read on page 2 and 3 of the Daily Nation. Let's now jump over to the Standard. Biased speaker. This is what is captured on the front page of the Standard newspaper. A High Court ruling declaring Azimio as the majority party sets the stage for a tense parliamentary session today. Will MPs from both sides abide by the verdict, or will Kenya Kwanza resist the shake-up? All eyes are on Speaker Moses Wetangula, whose earlier ruling now seems to have stoked a political storm. That story is told on page 6 of the Standard newspaper. Moment of truth. AUC race enters homestretch. Raila Odinga faces a defining moment in this. Raila Odinga faces a defining moment this Saturday as he vies for the African Union Commission chairmanship, with the President Ruto backing his bid. A win could see him exit local politics, while a loss may signal a dramatic comeback. Will Africa embrace his vision, or will Kenya's political landscape shift? That story is told in detail on page 7 of the Standard newspaper. Let's now shift to the Star. 100 MPs head to Addis for Raila's AUC polls D-Day. Tightly fought election is scheduled at the AU Summit on February 15th and 16th. That story is told on page 4 and 5 of the Star newspapers. Queries as 40,000 civil servants fail to go on leave. Questions have emerged about the productivity of some civil servants after it emerged that about 40,000 government workers failed to go on leave. HR experts observe that employees do not go on leave for many reasons, with a desire to protect staffs as the prime motivation. That story is told on page 7 of the Star newspaper. State outlines rules to control sand harvesting. It will be illegal to transport sand without a permit from the National Environment Management Authority. This is after the government introduced stringent regulations in latest bid to control sand harvesting in the country. That is what is captured on the front page of the Star, the Daily Nation and the Standard newspaper. Imran Mohammed is a youth leader, joins me on studio. Welcome to the program.
Asante sana, Mike.
And also Wakili Ken Odhiambo, who is an advocate of the High Court. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
How are you doing this morning?
I'm very okay.
Let's first of all go through what is making headlines in these local dailies, and I will start with the Daily Nation. Agony for youth after Ruto's visit. 50 suspects arrested in a police crackdown in Isiolo town on Saturday, hours after President Ruto's meeting was barred by heckling, were yesterday arraigned amidst protests by relatives and human rights activists who accuse the government of intimidation and harassment. Imran, let me start with you. What do you make of this? Because arrest followed an order by President Ruto after some youth heckled him.
Well, Mike, thank you for having me. Good morning, Kenyans. I'd like to say that first, we had a historic state visit by the President, His Excellency William Ruto. And that comes with a series of political mobilization, of course, in the right wing and in the left wing. Those who are willing to, receive and warmly welcome the President. And the political opponents of the current regime as well, who will be engaged in counterproductive activities to derail the real issues that the President went there to do. So it is not right for the government or the police now to deal and handle themselves the way they have handled themselves, and to approach young people who are, addressing their grievances or issues like that. But let's also say the reality. It is bad for young people of this country to heckle at the President. And of course, this has a hand in political mobilization. Politicians come out, use young people as the tool to throw things at the President, or the government rather. So I believe it was wrong the way the police handled the young people of Isiolo. As much as we condemn that, we also condemn the political business of heckling at leaders, especially somebody in the stature of the President, so that everybody can see that he's having difficult time talking to his people, talking to the people of Kenya. So I really condemn, I know there are politicians who might have been involved in this. I condemn that kind of business. So let's not shift away the narrative of a historic state visit by the President in Northeastern, Wajir, Garissa, Mandera and Isiolo, and that is what we are here to appreciate and talk about the gains of such a historic presidential visit. Yes.
Wakili, what do you make? What do you make of that? What do you make of what happened in Isiolo and the reprisals after?
No, I want to talk about the reprisals because I think it's the height of intolerance from the state. Because what we saw, in my view, is an expression of opinion. And I think everyone has a right to express that opinion. The people in that crowd, I think, had a right to communicate their pleasure or displeasure with whatever was going on there, with whatever the President was saying. And so I think if you really don't want to hear the opinions of people, then don't put yourself in a situation where they'll have to express themselves. But if you put yourself in that situation where there are masses and they are going to express themselves, then you must be ready for the attendant consequences, which could be an approval of what you are saying, or rather disapproval. So if they disapprove, and then you run on a crackdown of perceived people who you think, because I even think it is wrong at all levels, because now, how do you identify the hecklers a day later? It means you are running, what are you going to do to the community? Are you going to go to every home and say, I saw very many youths yesterday, you must be one of them? So I think even how you identify people to be arrested and taken to court, I think that is, and what are even charging them with? Is it causing a disturbance? What is that? So as I think, let's not use the judicial system, our courts, our police force, to harass the citizenry. I think it needs to be understood that the power belongs to the people. And if we appreciate that, it will be very important. But if we allow state machinery, we allow the police, we allow state agencies to call it usurpation of power, to usurp their powers and really use it to intimidate the citizenry, Because if you arrest them in numbers, what are you trying to communicate? That next time I come here, I don't want to see what I saw last time. But you see now, that one we are now trying to stop people from airing their views. Because what were their options if they didn't agree with you on stage? Or rather, that small population, that section that didn't agree with what you are saying, what did you want them to do? To write a letter? They would definitely exercise by maybe some noises. So I think people should be allowed to express that without fear. That would be my opinion on that.
Imran, was there a better way if you are expressing your displeasure to the government or even to the president? Is there a better way of doing it other than heckling?
I mean, Wakili is in a better position to tell us what are the right procedures of addressing pertinent issues when it comes to addressing somebody in the stature of the president. Heckling is definitely not one of them. So I believe Wakili is a bit lenient on giving us the right answer on this one. But of course, young people have the right to come up with leadership and express their issues through caucuses. They have representatives that can speak on their behalf. They can create platforms where they can invite these leaders to come and address them, and they ask their questions directly. But I think heckling is a political business, and I want to underline that. And actually is one of the biggest problems to our political structure at the moment, because if we are heckling at the president, what about other leaders? What about other leaders? I mean, Isiolo is a very hot seat. The governor has had quite a problem in terms of addressing the public as well. So, and I have seen a lot of digital mobilization ahead of the presidential visit in Isiolo, urging the young people to come out and behave in a certain way. So is Wakili saying that the police should not punish criminals? The police should not hold accountable young people who are really causing such problems in Kenya. So I believe there are better ways, more moderate and democratic ways to air our views as young people. And we should not be used every cycle of elections that we are the ones throwing stones at leaders, and particularly at the leaders we have installed in these positions. Yes.
Wakili, do you think they're being used to settle political or make political statements?
For me, I would not speculate. And what Muhammad is saying, I don't agree with it, because when you say criminals, I think it must be an offense. When you call someone a criminal, he must have committed an offense known to law. So in this case, what is this offense? So for you to arrest someone, then you must be telling them you have committed this offense under this law. Yes. So it must be known to law. So if you see, for you to generalize and say because you heckle you are a criminal, you must tell them what is wrong with heckling under the law. You may not be happy with what has happened, but is it something, an offense known to law? Is it punishable under the law? Rather than so I think, as I've said, just like clapping, if you clap for someone or you shout, would you say that you've committed an offense? But then if you jeer, would you also say that you've... So really, we should distinguish between not being happy with something and whether it is a criminal offense. So if it is a criminal offense, the best you can do is to let it rest. They booed, I didn't like how they looked at me, they were not happy with me. But what they have done is not something that is punishable under our laws. All right. So really, let's take people to court, those who deserve to go there. But those who don't deserve to go there, let them leave them. Let us leave them where they are.
All right.
Yes.
We are also joined by Wakili Ishmael Nyaribo, who is a constitutional lawyer. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you.
And let me rope you in on this discussion. We are talking about what is captured on the front page of the Daily Nation. Agony for youth after Ruto visit. 50 suspects arrested in a police crackdown in Isiolo town on Saturday, hours after President Ruto's meeting was marred by heckling. Were yesterday arraigned amid protests by relatives and human rights activists who accuse the government of intimidation and harassment. What's your take on that?
I think, first of all, we've been complaining about abductions.
Yes.
So we must congratulate the government, at least, for doing the right thing. The government, the police, the head of state feel that that was an attack on them. Mm-hmm. And they have decided the best thing is to follow the law and arrest those people who are, perceived to be doing a criminal act. I think on that level, we must now congratulate the National Police Service for taking that route. Now, whether it will succeed in court, you see now, that's again part 2, and we shall discuss once probably a charge sheet has been made and what charges are they taking them for in court. But in terms of the behavior of arresting, you have to, this is a democratic nation. Mm-hmm. The fact that they did not abduct or make them disappear, at that level, I think good-minded citizens should be like, yeah, cool, that is nice, that is the law. Mm-hmm. If you suspect somebody has done a criminal offense, you arrest them. You don't, use other, intelligence, operatives and make them, disappear, we do not know to where. Mm-hmm. So I think that was good. But now, whether, I think my colleagues, I was standing here and I had them discuss. Of course, my colleague is saying there is no criminal offense, and my other colleague is saying it is not correct, and the proper values, good values and morals, to heckle the head of state. Of course, it is not right to heckle seniors in society, leaders and all. It's not good to heckle them. But if you are interested in correct governance and leadership, you ask the right question: why are the youth heckling? That's where we begin now. Mm-hmm. Obviously, if I'm going to my house, I don't expect my youthful, family to heckle at me, isn't it? But if they heckle, the question goes beyond, my children heckled at me. You must ask them why. Now, youth is not a proper thermometer point to say that people have heckled at me. These young people, once you become a teenager, the level of energy circulating in you is definitely more. And if it is not managed correctly, you cannot blame the results. So if these are youth, if I look at the people arrested and I realize they are youths, actually I will again advise the National Police Service and the DPP to immediately drop the charges. If it is mature people our age and we are heckling, then of course, consequences can follow, and the correct law for consequences. So youth are a voice of a nation. If they are heckling, definitely all you need to do is to listen to them and ask them, why are they heckling? Are
you saying people of your age are not supposed to express displeasure?
No. We have several democratic ways, by the way. Okay. We can protest. When the head of state, as a symbol of unity and as a symbol, a head of state of the country comes at a place, I am sure I have responsibility to paint my country in a certain way. So I will wait for him to speak, finish up, then I will go mobilize all my, LSK and all private practitioners and professionals, and we go to the street. And again, you can see they still beat us in the street also. Mm-hmm. So I am a supporter of disintegrating issues. I'm looking at the Isiolo issue singularly in the sense of what could be done. The youth must be released. But if you find it is, people like me who are coming up together to heckle the president when he's talking, then definitely, at my level, we face consequences. Because we have proper ways of airing our views. I can go to the street, I can come here, I can speak on media.
Doesn't that apply to the youth also?
No, definitely not. The youth who are coming up, these are growing minds. The growing minds, they are sort of research in motion. They are continuously learning new things. They have a right to say whatever they say or refuse, and it's upon the DC, the county commissioners to try their level best to, Now, my brother spoke about probably, I don't know, I didn't hear him whether he said the governor or any politicians who could be sponsoring. I don't know what that is, but in terms of sponsoring heckling, now I want to come to my last bit of this comment. This has been started by State House, nobody else. It is State House that started heckling. When the people around the president tell him to publicly come and say, there are 3 things you can do, and they must be 3. Those are threatening remarks couched in a language by head of state. Now, we are seeing, and the youth are seeing. In fact, if you go to the schools, to playgrounds, to sports places, once you have been beaten, you are told, you shut up, there are 3 things. So, that language from leaders, you've had others saying, Sujui Mama Yenu, I don't know what, that language by leaders re-energizes the youth. So they come to know, they come to realize that, oh, so this is also a good language in public space. So you cannot say, and what were the youth saying, by the way? You know, they, from what I've seen in the clip, and which is not the qualified form of evidence, but I see them saying, uongo. The head of state is saying some remark, then uongo. Now then you look at the head of state, then he loses control. Then he literally speaks from the throat and the chest and says, you know, those kind of words, they resonate immediately to the youth. So when youth now are playing somewhere, they actually have to imitate their head of state. They're like, you will see what I will do with you. You cannot do that to me. That is wrong. And that's why we keep saying, much as we may criticize or we may be, you know, appearing to be opponents of a particular, you know, school of thought, or the head of state himself, the truth is, head of state finally must sit with councillors, and they are there. There are plenty. Councillors must sit with the financial experts, must sit with political experts, must sit with communication experts. Every single trip he's making, or he has all those people at his disposal. And they should tell me, Your Excellency, when it comes to youth responding, we plead with you to use this route. That's how. That's head of state is not just William Ruto. I mean, presidency involves a lot of people around him, and they should be given a chance to talk to him and you know, give opinion. I mean, Ruto, when, for example, he speaks like, I have a PhD, I mean, what that is communicating to the people is actually not what William Ruto meant. So communication experts should be there to actually tell him that, Your Excellency, when it comes to, if people react like this, and again, sorry, before you go to a trip, the head of state and his team always have enough intelligence on the mood and what is the likely outcome of that trip. So, I mean, we should not, you know, behave like we didn't know what's going to happen at Isiolo, and then come out and then, you know, become bitter and all those stuff, sort of things. I still want to route for the youth. They should be released. Okay.
Imran, I will give you time to respond to what Wakili has said, but I will do that after this short break. This is Good Morning Kenya. Stay with us. You're watching Good Morning Kenya. My name is Mark Migu. This is People and Politics. Before we went on a break, Imran, we wanted to respond to what Wakili said.
Yes, Mike, I would like to respond to what my good friend Wakili Nyaribo has just said. And I'd like to remind him that this is a national television. I don't want whatever he has said to be taken out of context in terms of, you know, State House being the origin of heckling. And I believe that statement is untrue. And Wakili, being the good lawyer I know, is well aware of the burden of substantiation of whatever he has said. So I believe as Kenyans we're used to this political heckling. And I give my example to, for example, Governor Sakaja. He was actually stoned in one rally. You have seen what happens in Western Kenya when the wrangle between Natembeya and Speaker Wetangula. And everywhere you go in Kenya, there is that political animosity between leaders and the people they represent. And unfortunately, I'd like to say that heckling has become an enterprise for some people in politics. So the president is not, somebody who is a victim of this heckling business alone. Other leaders have been heckled, others have been subjected to violence. You've seen what happened in Limuru the other day. So this is something that is there across all regions here in Kenya. And I don't want Wakili Nyaribo to go on record saying that it is State House who started this political heckling business.
I mean, you saw what former deputy president, the language he was using. I mean, you've seen people, close friends of the head of state, and the language they use, that is really my position. It's not like...
Yes. I'll just say, have a minute.
Yes.
There's only one thing my learned colleague has said.
Yes.
I have a problem with, that the government this time did not abduct. This time they arrested. I think we cannot congratulate someone for committing a lesser offense. That can never be our position. That is one. True, the issue of heckling is not new. I've seen it in Kenyan parliament. I've seen it outside the country, even in developed democracies, like the United States of America. Those countries, even the UK, these issues, heckling is a normal way of expression everywhere. So him to say that because you are older, then you are not supposed to heckle. I think I've seen even MPs heckling. The speaker, heckling each other, throwing water balls at each other. So really it is not a new thing, saying that these youths would have waited when they now go and organize a nice protest. Yes. So I think it's a common thing, and I think we should call it for what it is. We should not try to go around it and saying, no, at least now they were arrested. Litigation is a very expensive affair, so holding someone in a cell for a week for an offense that may not even be see the light of the day, I think it's not right.
You know, if they come to our offices, these youth, we've recovered money for suspects who are, kept in police cells for over 24 hours. They will still make money anyway. And they were idle. No, it's true. The court will punish the state if you arrest somebody for over 24 hours and charge or not charge them. So the legal threshold is 24 hours. Unless you show plausible excuse for that, there is no actual excuse under the Constitution. So we've gone to the courts, and I have several in my office personally, where the court has ordered that this youth must be paid money. This youth must be paid this much. You earn 400,000, you earn $500,000, because that's the only thing remaining. Once the government has arrested you, what else can you do anyway? They arrested you. So you go to court and have them pay for that kind of nuance. Okay,
gentlemen, allow me to graduate this conversation to another matter of public interest. We're talking about matters to do with the lifting of vetting, ID vetting, especially for people in northern Kenya. And allow me to start with you, Imran. What do you think of this move?
I mean, it's a blessing in disguise. I mean, we've been suffering for far too long. From 1963 to date, you can imagine a section of Kenyans being discriminated against in the highest terms possible. And this is one of the biggest burdens we've been carrying all along. We are Kenyans. I am Kenyan, proudly Kenyan. My father is Kenyan, and like his father before him is also Kenyan. So I believe we deserve to live under the terms and conditions of other Kenyans. This issue has been affecting us for far too long. And we really thank the president for making this decision and making it firmly and decisively on his own, because in 2022 he made a pledge when he was campaigning that he will really, by the stroke of a pen, he will get rid of this discriminatory law against the people of Northeastern and people of Somali origin. So I believe it has come a good time. I know many people will politicize this because of the time it is happening, but injustice anywhere or injustice against any people is really something to fight. It's something to speak against. So I believe it's something that was supposed to be done a long time ago. It has come this time, and we are proud of this move by President William Ruto.
Okay, allow me to engage Wakili Nyaribo. The intention is right. Was the timing correct?
Well, I don't know what you mean that the intention was right. There are several things you look at when you're looking at the aspect of vetting before you issue the ID. And then again, we ask the right question, why was it there in the first place? We have had a historical border problem between Kenya and Somalia for long, dating back to the shifters days and the border there, and the border is porous because of the nature of the people who live this side of Kenya and that side of Somalia. So every country must guard its borders. That is primary. That's the major issue here. You protect your borders. You cannot say that there is no border between Kenya and Tanzania. We have a nation, and you can also not say there is no border between Ethiopia and Kenya. These borders are there, and what you call sovereignty of a nation is mapped correctly by, those boundaries. So the boundary between Kenya and Uganda, we have a place called Busia. The people in Busia are vetted for information. You cannot just come here and pick an ID once you say my home is in Busia. Why? Because that's a border town. This happens. Even if you talk about the people who are coming from Namanga, we have Masai in Kenya and Masai in Tanzania. So this is all about border integrity. And why? Because statistics help us know how to run commodities, utilities, and how to allocate what people need in a particular region. So the reason why in northern Kenya it was more rampant is because my brother Imran is not telling you the other truth or the other fact, is that Imran now, you will find he has relatives in southern Mogadishu, relatives, genuine relatives, because his auntie, and I'm not saying Imran per se, but his auntie, his mother's sister, might have migrated to go and just settle in Mogadishu. And it's allowed. The Somali is a vast nation, by the way. You will find Somalis in Minnesota, and they are not intermarrying quickly with Muzungus. They are not. They are coming back to Gede and marrying from their own people, and then they go back. So they have a widespread, population in the world. So when you find relatives of Imran from southern Mogadishu coming to say hi and greet Imran, which is allowed, they have to undergo through the customs offices and be received officially and then come in as guests. Even his own auntie, who had lived here but went there and is a Somali as a citizen, will now come back probably with children, and then finally it will end up, by the way, that you will have a population blowing up without explaining, because they were not born here. They crossed over to the country and then had their papers processed or are requesting for their papers to be processed. So that is not correct for a nation, because you want to know your population and how you are becoming a double number in 4 years, 5 years. How are you a double number? Is it because you were born in the country, or it is because your relatives across the border have come in? That has to be known. I don't think our constitution objects to people becoming citizens of the country, but there's like a process you have to clear, you have to follow. So, and that's where the problem is. Now, you asked about timing. Of course, you know that that opening of the border and then now issuing of IDs has come at a time when the High Court has also said that the census in 2019 were wrong census. So, and Kenyans, my friend, people are learned. People, not learned because they have PhD. The citizens across the street are learned. They know. Almost everybody is a lawyer. So they add 1 + 1. Why now? So I think that that policy, to be honest with you, as much as it will not please my brother here, and is not right. It was not right to blanketly lift the vetting process. The only thing I think that should have been done in this country is to farm the technological process and eliminate human face in terms of vetting. If you have a correct system, now we have facial technology, then they ask certain relevant questions. Who is your mother, grandmother? Do you speak Swahili? How come you don't? Once you answer all those questions correctly, in fact, the ID processing should not take more than 24 hours. Okay. But removing the vetting completely is probably, and I think this will be challenged, is probably one easy way of actually making the volatile situation be more insecure, especially because of the nature of the people that live in the across the two borders. Yes.
Okay. I'll come to you. Let Wakili, I want to hear Wakili's sentiments on this, because we have also seen political leaders commenting on this. Are the people reading too much politics in this?
I would say that vetting is always there for even people who are even in Nairobi. It's not just about the border towns or along the border. There's where your chief signs. That is a vetting process. Because they believe your chief knows you or knows your father. That's where your bishop or pastor signs as you look for some of these things. So now it is more stringent on the border, and the reason is there for good reason, is to avoid, the borders are porous, to avoid a situation where people can cross. Actually, I'm told there are places where people have two IDs. So you choose where to get a service. You can choose to get it in Tanzania or in Kenya. You can choose to vote in Kenya or in Tanzania. So you
Doesn't that open a lure for even foreigners to have two IDs?
Actually, I'm told they do. So now, saying that you've lifted the vetting process, I think what we should do is to make it faster so that people can acquire this national identity card so that they're able to do their things. But saying that you've removed it, more so in a very porous area like northeastern Kenya, for me it is, and it's right for people to read politics in it. Because now, other people are also demanding. I'm told now Western Kenya and part of Migori, they're saying we also want it removed.
Border towns.
But you see now, why was it there in the first place? I think that's a thing that we must always ask ourselves. What was the wisdom in having it in the first place? So that we are able to prevent this cross-border movement of migration. You just leave Tanzania, you come to Kenya with your ID, then go back when you want. So I think it's a security issue as much as it's going to be a political issue, so that you can find a whole, you bring a whole location to even vote in a
But in Tanzania, my brother, in Tanzania, by the way, and Kenya, the Maasai, they graze their cattle here and they take them across the border without taking up the national ID of that country. They are allowed. I mean, Somalis from Namanga area, they go all the way to deep Tanzania when it is very dry over here. And the Somalis of Tanzania actually come all the way to Amboseli and they graze their herds of cattle and they take them back. So the issue is not interrelationship between the neighboring countries. The wrong issue here, I think, is actually that blanketly, you know, lifting the ID vetting.
Well, I want to respond to both my colleagues on this issue and possibly tell Kenyans the real issues that are happening here. I believe the government has not lifted vetting entirely. Vetting is a procedural process, and every Kenyan is vetted accordingly. But then there was an extra layer of vetting on the Somali community. This issue must be addressed completely. Now, I want to ask Wakili Nyaribo, because he's my good friend. And do you have a problem with a Kenyan Somali of Kenyan origin getting ID in Nairobi, in Dagoretti, in Namanga, in Kajiado, in Muranga, in Kiambu, because they have all the requirements that is needed to get an identification card? At the moment, we are not getting identification cards here in this part of Kenya because we are Somalis, simply because we are Somalis. We have to go back. We have to go back to our villages, even though we have the requirements that is needed. We have a problem with going to the immigration offices, looking for passport, and then all other Kenyans are told, move this way, and then the Somalis have to go through an extra vetting. You know, these are the issues that affect us.
That is bad. Okay.
These are the issues we need to talk about, you know. And I think the president has not lifted vetting entirely. Let's not politicize this issue. Vetting is there to stay. It is procedural for every Kenyan, okay? But then this extra discrimination on Somalis is what we are fighting. Plus, Let me tell you for a fact, every Kenyan knows and every Somali knows that whenever we go to get services from these government offices, we are seen as a walking money. We are seen as a bank, that we are told to wait a little bit so that they can siphon us. They can take bribes from us. They can, intimidate us to get government services simply because we are Somalis. This is what we are fighting, a generational curse in the Kenyan politics and on the Somali people is what we are fighting against. And I think it's only fair that we go down this route without noise.
Imran, I think you should not scandalize the Somali nation for having so much money. I mean, you buy a lot of buildings, you do a lot of good work. I think there's nothing wrong having more money. So.
I understand you also have an engagement. I want to ask you one last question before I release you. Does this, from your standpoint, compromise national security?
Actually, it is a very big concern. A very big concern. What my brother Imran is referring to, and you can see the nature of this conflict or issue needs broader, debate, even before you can actually blanketly, remove vetting. He's saying a very honest point. If he lives in South Sea or Kilimani and has a wife and gets a child today, do you need to take this newborn baby to Northeastern for vetting? From who? He doesn't even know who in Northeastern can vet, so that is understandable. But we are not here for the first time. You also understand the nature, the demographics, the nature of the people. Like I said, because of the many relatives, you find somebody is here, but he honestly does not speak Swahili. He is 20 years old. You need to ask, okay, so sorry, but did you go to school? He says, yes, I went to school. Where did you go to school? Here in South Sea. Okay, fine. Where's the paper? The paper is not there. So why don't you speak Swahili? Okay, I stayed at home. I never went out. So these issues are honest. They are honest the way Imran is putting it, on the side of that level of discrimination. But they are also honest when the government is trying to understand, who are you?
Okay.
Know your customer. It's a principle in the banking sector, isn't it? That when you are vetting also, just know the citizen. But I don't agree. I cannot acquiesce to the possibility of separating people, that if you are Somali, you are taken aside, if you are not. But that cannot just go unchallenged in terms of security of a nation. Because you know what we have undergone. And you know when the intelligence services and the military and the Kenya police and all agencies, when they stood together, we have actually lived close to 5-7 years of some level of peace where we are not being attacked. So this vetting should not blanketly be removed, but systems should be properly put in place and remove human face. This is the one Imran is saying, they will always ask for money from you. And sometimes you're asking for money actually from a very poor family that doesn't have money at all. So the system should be in place to issue the title themselves, the system. Because if you put a proper system, now we have AI, Miwi, you cannot have the wrong elements and the criminals entering the country. Okay. That's, the issue of security is paramount in terms of when you are issuing the IDs.
Wakili, you wanted to respond to that?
No, I'll pass.
Okay. No, let me say, one 30 seconds. Where in the law does it say Kiswahili is a requirement to definitively say that you are a Kenyan or you're not a Kenyan? I mean, where is this narrative coming from? I think it's just a political fallacy in the minds of politicians, and that has come and found its way on this panel right now. And I don't want to associate myself with that idea that actually Kiswahili is a requirement for you to be told that you are a Kenyan. The Mama Mboga from Muranga that comes to immigration offices is speaking in her own mother tongue, authentically, and by right, she should be speaking in her own mother tongue. Okay. But where there is a translation needed, it's given. And so applies to the person from Eastern and Western and Rift Valley and Nyanza. Why now, when it comes to the Somali community, you have to tell me I have to speak Kiswahili? For what?
All right. I'm told we have run out of time, and there's a very big issue that needs a lot of addressing. But I will give you each a minute to give your final submission. Let me start with you, actually.
Yeah, I think always I believe a country is bigger than an individual or a particular set of people. So I still encourage our head of state to go easy on us, to pick all advice from the people around him, and be honest about wanting to deliver on his promises. And he should not be hurt or bitter with the citizens when they react in a certain way.
Yes.
Yes.
Wakili.
Yeah, so I think for me, I would say we should embrace tolerance. We should appreciate basic rights of individuals, the right to their opinions. So I think that should really not be curtailed when it is not necessary. I think using means to try to muzzle those views, those opinions, I think will only work towards creating an angry country. So I think it is better to give people the platform to air their views without limiting those rights that they have. So I think it's for state agencies, it is for National Police Service. I think we cannot pretend not to know the law. So some of these people have been in the forces for so long, they've been there. So really for you to say you are acting under certain instructions, I think it is wrong. Let's allow people to air their views without intimidation. In that way, then we're able to get a country going forward.
Imran.
I'd like to tell Kenyans the Somali community is a law-abiding community, and we have participated in the Mau Mau rebellion. Actually, part of the finances of the Mau Mau rebellion were Somalis. We have participated in saving this government when the 1982 coup was happening. Somalis are across all political divides.
Yes.
They are in different sectors of the community. They are in business, they are in politics, they are in every single perspective within the structure of this country as a whole. So national security is a national issue. Let's address it at the national level, but let's avoid pointing fingers at the Somali community that they are the only ones causing security problems in this country.
All right. Thank you so much for making time. That is Imran Mohamed, who is a youth leader, Ishmael Nyaribo, who is an advocate of the High Court, and also Ken Odhiambo, an advocate of the High Court, making time here to talk about matters that drive public conversation. This is where we end this segment. My name is Mike Migwe. Stay with us here on Good Morning Kenya. It continues on the other side, that is on radio and TV. Good morning.